Welcome to Against All Oddities, the podcast about three brothers coming to terms with the oddly true and the truthfully odd. Today's episode, we dive headfirst into the lesser-known concept of loosh. That's right, energy farming, emotional harvesting, interdimensional snack food. Whatever you want to call it, we're going there. From Robert Monroe's wild astral travels to the increasingly popular theory that Earth is one big cosmic loosh buffet, we explore the idea that maybe, just maybe, your existential dread is someone else's amuse-bouche, or as we like to call it, amuse-loosh. And of course, in classic AAO fashion, we spiral into adjacent rabbit holes like Archons, the Matrix, manifestation, initiatory dreams, and all sorts of other tasty tangents to keep the loosh flowing strong enough to reach even the most distant interdimensional interlocutor. This is Against All Oddities.
Well, hello there. Hello, listeners on wherever you listen to podcasts or watch and smashing like and subscribing on YouTube. We're Against All Oddities, where we talk about strange, funny, paranormal, spiritual, manifesty, occult, and spooky, and sometimes just funny and odd. I'm youngest brother Tim.
Odd what? Odd things? Odd topics? You didn't put a noun in there. You just
The
put
odd,
a bunch of...
the odd is the thing. It covers all of it. It's the general oddness of the whole existence of odd. I'm youngest brother Tim.
I'm middle brother Chris.
Nate.
And Nate.
Yeah, and
So if anybody is watching on YouTube, Nate is staying at a hotel and his sound quality was a little echoey. So he is currently wearing a giant blanket and he looks like the guy that went viral screaming to leave Britney alone about 12 years ago. So if you're listening on Spotify or iTunes or whatever and you want to see that, go check it out on YouTube. I'm going to try to put some more shorts out and stuff and pedal YouTube a little harder, but you know, it's whatever. Today's topic, which we haven't talked about, I want to introduce in a more fun guessing game for the listener.
Mhm.
Chris and Nate already know the answer to this. So
Park City.
Because we do research. we
Right.
research.
Yeah, because you do
our
research.
episodes.
No, I'm going to introduce our topic as a movie trailer, but I guess it's already been spoiled because this has already come out and they've seen the title.
Trimmers.
But try to guess the movie. It's not Trimmers.
Terminator
It's not Dark
8.
City. It's not Terminator 8. I'll try to do the voice. Hold on. Hold on. In a world. Hold on. That's harder than it.
No, you did good.
In a world where unseen entities are feeding on our very human consciousness for their own benefit, one dares to go into their world to fight back. Guess what movie that is? It's about looshing.
The Matrix.
Monsters, Inc.
Yeah.
Guess what the episode's about
answer because you
looshing?
told it to me earlier. But
That's why I said you already knew the
I did.
flipping
That's why I
answer.
feigned the wrong answer for you.
Oh, well done. Well done. So anyway, this episode is about looshing, and not everybody knows
Loosh.
loosh is. Well, it involves the act of looshing.
Loosh.
Is that
you're
like
right. You don't
sledding
just-
downhill? Like you're on a sled with somebody else in between your legs going real
I mean, that's
flat
what I
fast?
researched is the Olympic Games and
Looshing.
losing.
They are screwed.
If we didn't have extraterrestrial beings stealing our loosh, would our loosh still just go off into the universe? Like
Well,
if a
depends
loosh falls
on
in
the
a forest
track.
and no
You
one's
gotta
around to
lean.
hear it. Yeah.
So I feel like it's a little different than that. It's
Yes, of course.
I'm going to run a quick definition and then maybe we can all share our own thoughts on it. But Chris had a listener contribution. Did you want to start with that?
Yeah, we'll start with that because it kind of the reason why we're doing this topic is because a listener wrote in and said, do an episode on loosh because no one else is talking about it.
Which
and I
I'll
want
say
to talk about
anybody
it.
can do. Email us at
Yeah,
wizard.
for real. We are easily malleable.
Right.
And
You want to
but-
influence some influencers? Just send us an email and
so
call us.
I'll just read what he said because I think it kind of like explains why he wrote in and stuff. So this is coming from our friend of the show, Tay Blow, who lives in Brooklyn. Is Severance a loosh farm? Severance, the TV show. I listened to JC Denton and Joshua Citarella's podcast, a collaboration with Otherworld, discussing. So we'll get into this because we also listened to that podcast and we have thoughts on it. Discussing Monroe and Loosh after watching an episode of Severance where Miss Casey goes through all of her many rooms. Since Loosh could be generated through human suffering, conflict, and worship, it seems like Severance not only shows all of those three things inside the Lumen compound and in the greater town of Cure, but the belief in Loosh seems to explain the body horror and suffering happening within these spaces. I can't explain the paintings or goats, though they seem super hormone-coded. But this is where I landed after hearing J.C. Denham talk through his understanding of Loosh. Maybe the goats are vessels for converted Loosh that can be transported from the Lumen facility as food or milk. Curry. So thanks, Tay, for writing in. A couple things. So Tay also gave us, he was asking me if we also join our Discord where you can have conversations with people like Tay and any me or Tim. Nate does not partake.
But me and Eric Slater are getting some bomb hits on the remote viewing practice.
Oh yeah, our Discord's a lot of fun, and I think we can get Nate in there eventually. But the remote viewing channel is, I think, unique and special to us. And then the UAP section also pretty active, mostly because of Tim and Eric, but I appreciate both of their efforts. But I did want to talk briefly about regarding Tay's thing about Severance. Tim has not seen Severance, and then Nate and I have only seen the first season. But if you haven't seen Severance, that's the TV show with that guy from Parks and Rec.
It's on Apple TV,
Scott.
was why I haven't watched it.
Yeah, exactly. But basically,
just buy a new iPhone, Tim. You get to watch everything for 3 months, and then it's done.
Yeah, it was worth the $900.
Yes.
But anyway, that's the show where the character separates their work life and their life, and it's kind of this like bizarre compound underground where they can't remember what's going on.
And very liminal, which is a good thing for Chris.
Yes, it's a very like liminal horror space, but kind of through the lens of, it's kind of funny too, because it's
the cast
Adam
is
Scott.
funny.
The cast
and
is funny,
it's got DeJesus in it, right? Like,
yeah, and it's pretty absurd. So we can't really, unless anyone has a comment on that. I completely think that's actually pretty solid theory, because it does seem to be like torture for no reason. And it's like any of these shows where you don't really understand what upper management's up to. It's like a really good conspiracy.
Yeah, but I guess in the show,
theory,
as somebody who
Tay.
hasn't seen it, is it you're splitting your consciousness, but like the work
sort
person
of.
and the leisurely person, they're the same, but one is at work all the time and the other is having fun all the time.
But if you think about it on paper, you're like, oh, it's kind of nice because then I don't have to take work home with me. But what happens is you end up torturing a part of yourself that never gets to leave work, and you end up having two people that hate each other. So there's like, the work person is trying to escape because he only knows work and has no connection
and it's meaningless, terrible work.
Yeah, it's absurd work, like enter this number for no reason,
or feed the baby rabbits or goats or whatever. Like it's all terrible tasks, but they have to find meaning in it because there's nothing else. So they
don't
have
get to go
find
home.
Meaning in their tasks.
Meanwhile, the person who goes home doesn't know that he's suffering at work because he doesn't remember what's happening at work. So it's
great
kind
show.
of like
it's a really good. I enjoyed it.
It's an interesting concept because you create the have and the have-nots at war with each other, but they're the same person.
Yeah, exactly.
But they don't even, and the haves doesn't even know. And
but the people at work know about that they actually have an outside life that they can never attain, right? And you're just trapped at work forever. I can imagine the writers like coming up with the concept pretty easily.
Okay, so
like, why are we in the basement? Those actors are all rich. We're sitting here like toiling, and we're going to be replaced by AI anyway. Like, why are we even here? And they're like, wait a minute, that's a show.
So exactly. I think we need to describe what Loosh is for listeners that don't know.
Yeah, we should go into Loosh, and then I do want to come back to that podcast, which is it's a decent, like, it's basically the guy from Doom Scroll, and then the guy from Otherworld, which is another podcast, kind of going it together for this mini series where they are like, what's loosh, what's binaural beats in the Monroe Institute, and I think they did a really good job on the history.
Yeah,
but then I
their
think
conclusions are terrible.
they're just squares, man. They're
I think
squares.
they're trying to
like
be
even
controversial,
worse
but
than that. Yeah, hey, can I start out? You want me to read the paragraph of what loosh is?
yeah,
Yes.
go for it.
Yeah. All right. So what is loosh? Loosh is a term coined by Robert Monroe, the pioneer of out-of-body experiences and founder of the Monroe Institute, which you are familiar with if you listen to our past episodes. He introduced the term in Far Journeys, one of his books. Loosh is described as an energy produced by living beings, especially humans, through experiences of strong emotion, such as fear, pain, suffering, or love. And this energy is supposedly harvested by non-physical beings or advanced entities for nourishment or power. So think battery in the Matrix, except you're not producing electricity, you're producing feelings. And there are these people or things or entities that are sucking all this up, like feeding on it, like you're just the machine and the sweet frog squirting out different flavors of emotion instead of frozen yogurt.
Yeah. So there's something you said about the Matrix when it first came out. Like, came out in '99. We all loved it. It's a great movie. Shortly after, I don't know when we were talking about it, but I feel like this was back then. Your complaint about it, Nate, was like, I like the movie, but like, why would you make batteries out of human? Cows are so much better, and you don't need as much software to confuse them. And that has stuck with me for like
at all.
for like 30 years. I was like, it's true. Why humans are so complicated? Like, just get the cow. It's like 500 pounds of battery, but it's because electricity is something that the average Joe can understand, but the Matrix is really about loosh, and cows don't quite have the emotional like
it could more grass. More grass.
Yeah, exactly.
Not enough grass.
Like, the cow Matrix is probably spectacular. I would go visit it.
It's
You'd
just
see me come in wearing like all leather coats.
It's the opening screen to Windows XP. That's it. They already have it. It's done.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I'd be walking around in like in a leather trench coat. Like,
yeah, the cow's like, I'm good with the startup screen. This is all I need. But who's to say cows aren't in it anyway? And that's part of it. Like, you have like lower vibrational beings and higher vibrational beings. Like, the farther up you're on it, so maybe the lower ones like the cow loosh. Like, that's right, chew that cud, bitch. Or whatever.
Or like the void of space would be super stoked about like a bunch of like Highland cows with their cute hair running through the fields. Like, I agree.
The cow gets upset.
Is great.
It got its head stuck in a little Tyke's like car, right?
I'm gonna rein us back in.
Wait, but I do want to say cows actually are more advanced than like we have cows at the school I work at. They're different every year and they're always young, and they have dramatically identifiable personalities.
Oh, they have best friends.
Okay, Tim, rein us back in. Sorry.
Nobody has clearly defined loosh.
I just did. And
you did. No, you read the dictionary version of loosh. I need you to talk about it and explain it in a way that makes sense now. Now that you've read that, because I'm telling you, I've been listening to us and you guys. None of this makes sense so far. Because I brought up the Monsters Inc. thing, and then we got on a tangent on Severance.
Explain Monsters Inc., Tim. Explain Monsters Inc.
So, no, Tim, explain loosh.
Yeah, okay. That's why I think we need our version of it, because we haven't exactly talked about loosh. We keep going on tangents without, because you gave us this
That's
dry
what makes
thing.
us such a special podcast.
Okay. So I'm going to say the reason I brought up Monsters Inc. is because loosh is either an energy or a nutrient. It's the food of the gods, or it provides this energy that these higher dimensional beings or aliens, whatever you want to call it, entities that are one or two evolutionary steps above us or in the fourth dimension, whatever you want to believe, that's where they are. Some let's say interdimensional, because it makes more sense to me. They're in the fifth dimension right above us, but they they don't interact with us, but they can pick up and somehow consume or utilize our emotions. The strongest emotions on either end of the spectrum being love and just hate and fear and scary things. So the way Bob Monroe described it, because he had a run-in with these entities or something
When did he have? Let's give it a time period here.
when he did the out-of-body stuff for the Monroe Institute, when this was
In the
getting started.
70s.
Yeah, 70s, early 80s. I don't
I
know.
think it's important to date where this is coming from.
Yeah, so he coined it after having this interaction, and then I guess it's gained more popularity as other people are like, oh, I've heard that too. Oh, I picked up on that. Oh, all this stuff.
Well, I also think Monroe stuff has gotten more popular over the years
Yeah.
too, you know.
And so it started with love, and the way it was described as like loosh is one of the rarest things in the universe, right? It's a gem. It's a rare diamond, but it's something that you can eat and you can't find it anywhere. And so what these things did is saying, why don't we just create loosh? And we'll do that by industrializing it, which I don't know if anybody knows this, but Earth is actually it's a theory, is our solar system and our universe. We're in this giant dead zone where stars are usually congested and all the way on top of each other.
That's not a theory. It's actually
Well,
true.
it's
There's
okay.
a
So
big
we're in
void
this like dead
in the
zone,
Milky Way.
right? Yeah, and there's just nothing around us, but right there, there's our solar system. There's Earth with perfect creation, first on Mars, and then billions of years later on Earth, just to keep creating life. And then that's the industrial loosh complex. It's they just touch it,
Industrial
just
illusion complex, yes.
right. You just touch it a little bit and get the evolution head in the right direction to create a species that experiences consciousness, joy, and then fear and things like that.
Probably started out with fear in the dinosaur area, right?
Yeah, I
Where
mean, well, that's
you
if you
work
break
your
it
way
down,
up to the higher
fight or
level.
flight. But nowadays, with modern civilization, and this is a Thomas Campbell thing. We live in a state of fear or a state of love, and love isn't like a passionate love. It's, are you okay? Can I get you anything? There's somebody hurt. How can I help? Where the state of fear is, I don't want you to take my stuff, so I'm going to take yours first. You're bigger than me, so I'm going to gang up with a bunch of people and then we're going to kill you so you can't hurt any of us. Like which is how we live. But apparently both sides of that spectrum are something that could be taken. And so if our consciousness is somehow greater than our bodies, which a lot of people say, and everything's vibrations and you just are emitting this high, they can leech off of that. These parasites can just take it.
The Gnostic Archons.
Yeah, so that's the whole
Yes.
theory is
We'll
about the
get into
different
that for
things.
sure.
But it's why I talked about Monsters Inc. Because these monsters are hiding under kids' beds. The kids think they're real, the parents don't, and they scare them and they scream and they literally fill up battery packs to run their city. But then at the end of it, they found out that laughter is much more powerful, and so they're doing stand-up comedy and making the kids laugh and just still filling up the batteries. So that
But
it's
better than fear.
but it's better. It's better because
Because
it's
they
more
evolved. Yeah.
synergistic. It's not a parasite. Suddenly, it's mutual. But Monsters Inc. is totally about looshing, which I think is
is.
what they're saying. The friend Chris is saying that Severance is that they create half of their life as just miserable because upper management is somehow benefiting from them being miserable, not doing the work.
Yeah.
Or
So
Severance is like 10 hours to Monster Inc.'s 2.
right, but they're both the
A lot
same
more than
thing.
10.
You could also argue that the movie Soul is also like sort of about that too.
Yeah.
I did want to also clarify that. So Bob Monroe was doing his out of body research in the 70s, but we're talking about Loosh, which is from his book Far Journeys, which was actually 1985 when it came out. So I
I
just wanted
said
to
early
clarify the
80s.
time
That
period.
counts.
That's
I
40
said
years
70s,
ago.
but he's talking about his experiences when he was doing out of body stuff, which I think we maybe glossed over, but like he didn't just like come up with this. The idea is this was something that was told to him by one of these entities that he kind of bumped
Right.
into in the astral.
So we experience this as humans, and the Germans coined it as Schadenfreude, right? Where you just get joy from other people's misery. But instead of joy, these whatevers are actually getting sustenance or high or like extending their life or something. So anyway,
I think
that's
real
There's
quick.
the life is here, life is material. But keep going, Chris.
Wait, hold on. I want to do a pop quiz. Pop quiz,
hot shot. Pop quiz, asshole.
Who here is a believer of loosh?
Ooh, that's a
Not the way
loaded.
you think it is.
That's a loaded question. I would say yeah.
That's fine. That's a fine
I
answer.
100%. It is not an exchange or vampiric as you think. It is similar
Not
to
me,
if
but
you
as one might.
right. I won't say. I'll say yes, and then I want to have a chance to clarify. But
You're a yes, but
yeah.
Tim.
I'll just flat out say yes. However, can I explain why yes?
Yeah, I want to say I'm probably leaning towards a no, but like I'm a no, but I'm also open to it. But
Right.
it just doesn't feel quite right to me.
So
but anyway.
here's
because it's not right.
Yeah. So here's my thing. If I have experienced great joy in my life and awe, and I have been terribly scared and angry, and it really does radiate. Like it is a palpable
absolutely.
thing. And so when you walk into a room and it's just two other people and they're fighting with each other, it's subtle cues and stuff. But even before you look at either of them, you pick up on the vibes. You can feel that. And so if the theory is that it's the same if like, and I'm not saying like a couple that are just in love with each other, but if you walk into a room that's full of love, like a Christmas gathering and everybody hasn't seen each other and just so happy, you don't even have to hear what people are saying. You can see it from the outside and it just radiates this warmth and this good feeling. So that exists. And I think that is what the definition of loosh is. Now, whether or not there's something else that's able to harvest that, that's what sort of the spookier side of it that we won't know until, you know, we pass on to the other side, I guess.
Or not.
Or have
I
out of
think
body
you're right on.
experiences.
Tim is right on, right? Like everything you're saying is right up. And I love your analogy with Monsters Inc. I'll start by saying there's a podcast called Expanding on Consciousness, the Monroe's podcast. Mark Curto is his name, the host of that. He had an interesting comment. It was him or a guest. I can't remember, but it was, you know, you're when you see something, you're seeing it from your perspective and how you were raised or brought up, your conditions, nature, nurture, everything. And you look at Monroe was exactly our grandfather's age, right? So if you took our granddad and had him he sees like you're in a weird state. Granddad sees this weird looking thing, and you see some kind of energy movement from something else. He's going to say predator prey, right? And that's I'm by the way, this isn't what Mark Curto says. This is my analysis of my interpretation of what he said. But he did say Monroe came from a different time. Like his time was the 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s, right? In not a modern perspective. So he sees things as a predator and prey. And when you see an energy transfer, he sees it as, a give or take, like this is the vampire, this is the victim. Now, if you think about it from a movie perspective, and here's how I see it. And there's two, I'll give you two examples. One is, say you're watching Fight Club in 1999, same year Matrix came out, or maybe it was 98, I can't remember.
But no, 99. There's a lot of great movies came out in 99.
Yeah, good decade for movies, right? It was pretty solid. So was 80. But
no, just the year 1999. You can see the list of you're like
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. No, that was 2000, I think. Yeah, but close. Good era. But here's the thing: you're watching that, you're living that sequence between Brad Pitt and what's his name and the action, and oh yeah, you're doing the ups and downs because you're not living that life. You don't have the ability to live that. So you're experiencing those emotions in that moment with Ed Norton and whoever, right? In what are you gaining from that? If you looked at it from an alien watching a movie theater, watching that, it looks maybe you're sucking that energy out of Brad Pitt. I can promise you, Edward Norton and Brad Pitt did not lose their personal energy to us, the audience, and watching. If anything, they gained their own energy from the attention of it, right? In prosperity and wealth or whatever. So that's one example where I see it as not as a sharing. The other one will be what's his name? Fucking Morty and the Rick and fucking Rick. Rick and Morty, where they go to the arcade and they play Dave, right? Or whatever it is, Mike or whatever, and then it came out with Dave, where you live a whole life. And they're like, what's his name? Morty beats cancer, goes back to the carpet store, and then the roll of carpet falls on him and kills him. He's like, yippee, cancer went back to the carpet store. And then you see Rick puts the helmet on and plays the whole life. And in this episode, the arcade game is you play a life from birth to death of a human is the arcade game, right? So you see Rick put it on and everyone's standing around in the arcade watching him. He's like, he doesn't even have a social security number. And you see Rick running naked through the woods. So are those people that are experiencing that excitement and everything from watching the video game, much like when I was at the arcade from the last episode or 2 episodes ago, and watching somebody else play Tekken and kicking ass, I'm getting energy from that, right? Or I'm getting something, or because I can't live it, I'm getting the emotion from living it. And that's where I think that I would say maybe, and we could go into the mythology behind it, or it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. Just because we're one of the movie references I want to bring up soon, which I love the movie and the book. I read the book first for Stephen King's. They have the great out-of-body scene.
Oh yeah,
Dr. Sleep.
Dr. Sleep. Thanks. Yeah, sorry, brain fart. But that's the idea, right? Is like that's a scary way of looking at it. But I don't think that's if that's true. I think it's more of watching a movie and you're living the emotions through that life, because say you die and you're a ghost or you're an ancestor and you're watching behind Chris as he deals with some like sick kid or whatever. He's probably like, that's right, sick kid. That's a bitch, but they're getting something out of it because they can't interact with this physical universe. Much like the audience behind the arcade machine and Rick and Morty, we're watching them play the game. Rick and Morty aren't aware of it. They're playing the game.
So
right?
we're the ones looshing by watching Severance.
Yes.
Hey, so I have a loosh thing I want to bring up Wait, go.
Chris, save that thought. Write it down. Come back to it. But before we get too far away from this, I'm just playing like some I'm going to list off some of these movies that came out in 1999.
Tim, that's literally what I was about to do.
I have a list. While Nate was talking, I was like, 1999 is the best movie year ever.
I know. I have a list of the Tim.
Parks
you list one, and then I list. You list one, and then I list one. This is 1999. Look at the bangers from 1999, and be like, when has this ever happened? Before or after? You list one, then I'll list one.
All right. Iron Giant.
Fight Club.
The World Is Not Enough. The 007 movie.
The Matrix.
The Ninth Gate.
The Green Mile.
American Movie, the documentary.
Yeah.
Check it out if you haven't. Talented Mr. Ripley, which is whatever.
Being John Malkovich.
Oh my God.
Varsity Blues.
Magnolia.
What?
The Boondock Saints.
13th Warrior.
What?
I know.
The Japanese
Blair Witch Project.
Yeah, the Japanese horror movie, Audition.
I mean,
Arnold Schwarzenegger's End of Days.
Oh,
technically, I don't like this, but Austin Powers also came out. But like,
10 Things I Hate About You. And check this out. Guess what came out in 1999? Godzilla 2000 with Matthew Broderick.
Also, The Mummy.
Yeah,
it keeps
going. Wild West.
Just keep going. I'll name them when I run into it. You keep naming them too. Oh, The Mummy was so good.
I know. It's one of Nate's favorite movies.
It's still good. Watch the Tom Cruise movie and then go back and watch the Brandon Fraser.
One fucking year they have this.
That was a knockout year.
I mean, these are movies that like changed everything. Like,
who won the Academy Awards that year? I gotta know.
They didn't hold it. They just gave up. They just like
everyone wins.
Stigmata, the Beowulf.
Stigmata's good.
Eyes Wide Shut, which is a big movie.
I said Eyes Wide Shut. But that's what I'm saying. This is a year, 1999. Look at these are things that changed.
Sleepy Hollow.
Like, the Matrix.
Sleepy Hollow was fantastic too.
Star Wars: The Phantom Menace. That was a game changer.
Eyes Wide Shut changed movies. I mean, this is like The Sixth Sense. Like, these are movies that they don't make. They reference these movies now. Like, being John Malkovich is like
Fantastic.
I mean, Office Space. They're still referencing Office Space
Office
today.
Space was
Galaxy
99?
Quest.
Oh
Galaxy
my-
Quest.
Galaxy Quest.
I know. Okay, so that was our
All right,
diversion
back to
to the
hold.
movies.
Man, 1999 was.
I mean, I'm telling you, 99 was
banging.
like, I think they're like, look, the world's going to end. Y2K, we got to get all of these things greenlit.
Pre Netflix, right? Think about
Mhm.
90. I bet 99 to 2000 was the peak blockbuster year, right? All those movies are on new release. Every one of those movies, they're like,
You know,
they
and
banned
people
from
were
here.
buying
Gizzard
those
was running any
DVDs
of
because,
these.
you know, they would have like 3 copies and they would always be out, but you could buy it for $20. And you're like, well, I have 5 dudes with pizza waiting. I'm going to have to spend the $20 because I'm not
No, you
coming back
can't rent it.
empty-handed.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get back on topic. One of the things when I first heard of Loosh that I thought was particularly terrifying was the idea of the Loosh prison. So not so much as
Or
these
we're a
prison
prison
planet.
planet, yeah.
Prison planet we're on.
yeah, which is like a giant angler fish, you know, with the light at the end of the fish that like that attracts the worm. So it's like when you die, you go like, oh, I'll go towards the light, and it just traps you on a
There is
prison
a whole
of reincarnation.
There's a Reddit page, Gosset, that's about against the light at the end of the tunnel, where everyone's like, I'm not going to the light. It's this whole giant Reddit rabbit hole if you really want to find them.
Yeah, no, I know,
was
but
a- that
that's
was
the,
a,
when I heard that, I was like, this is actually terrifying.
Yeah, that was a
because,
Midnight
like,
Gospel thing too.
But the Midnight Gospel was good.
No, it was better because that was the Midnight Gospel with what's his name, the guy
Duncan
from
Trussell and
well, Duncan Trussell did the Midnight Gospel, but the guy talking about becoming a star using ceremonial magic, and that he talked about a little bit about.
But he wasn't
like,
the prison escape episode.
No, he wasn't, and so he was the guy
magic.
from the Satanic Panic guy. What's his
Yeah.
name? One of the 3.
And he learned magic in prison, but that's a different episode. The Prison Planet episode is more about the Buddhist view of reincarnation, which is
yeah,
more
but finding
medium.
enlightenment's being able to step away from the light when it's time, and then you can choose where to go. You know, instead of breaking the karmic cycle or whatever it is.
Fantastic podcast.
Oh, Damien Eccles, who's really cool. I like Damien
Yeah.
Eccles. He has a podcast too.
So that brings up the podcast that our listener suggested, right? With those
Tay, yeah.
Yeah, no, what was the name of the podcast?
Oh, that one was a combo from the guy who does Doom Scroll working with the guy who does
So we
Other
all listened to that,
Worlds.
and I'll say it brought up an introductory to Robert Monroe, which I've heard his past like 1,000 times, so I kind of skipped that.
Yeah,
part.
they do like a deep dive into the Monroe Institute and binaural beats.
Yeah, and it was like 2 or 3 parts, but
This is JC Dentham and Joshua Cinterella's
Yeah,
podcast in
it's
collaboration with Otherworld.
really worth listening to. But what I found the most fascinating about that wasn't the history, because I've heard it. If you've never heard it, go
I mean,
listen
if
to
you've
those
never heard
guys.
it, it's great. They did a really good job diving into the history of it and what a binaural beat is, and
Their conclusions terrible.
were wrong.
Yeah, their conclusions were
okay.
wrong. So, but the podcast itself, the data that their analysts is how they approached it. But when they were explaining the different frequencies, it was really fascinating. That was my favorite part.
Yeah.
Because there's sound frequencies that we can't hear. And we're just like, oh, we can't hear it. It doesn't affect our life. But it does every day. And there's low frequencies that are too low for us to register, but they make us feel anxiety and they make us feel unsafe. And we have been tapping into that since the 70s. The Exorcist, when the movie came out, they played these frequencies, which is why that movie's so uncomfortable, because they're in the background making you feel uncomfortable during the scary scene. So it's not just scary, but you're viscerally reacting visually to what you see because it's scary, and you're picking up on sound waves that don't work. And it's why they've weaponized this. Like the protest recently, God, where was it?
Yeah.
Brooklyn.
No, it was in the Middle East somewhere. But anyway, there's this giant protest, and you could see suddenly there's like thousands of people in the street, but they all just separate and they get off the street as quickly as they can. And they're like, oh, it was a weaponized sound waves that they couldn't hear, but they all panicked and they thought something was wrong and they
It was
scattered.
in Serbia.
So yeah.
What's the difference between microwaves and radio waves?
The frequency.
Frequency.
Right. So it affects our bodies, and it's not just the low but the high. But I think I've been doing a lot of the binaural stuff, even like at work. I'll just play it in the background, and I've been listening to a lot of Neville Goddard because I'm breaking this universe to ensure success and security and
It's
stuff like
fun when
that.
it happens.
Right. So it worked for Nate. Nate has manifested, and now he is just on cruise control and filled with his own stress and back to like stuff. I don't know how yet, but I'm doing it.
He'll do
Chris
it.
Chris can do it too. He's
He's
just
got a
kind of wrapped
baby.
up
He's
in the thick of
Carter.
it. Yeah, but that's part of it.
I'm working
Carter
on
with
it.
babies.
So
I'm
it's
just trying
maintaining the
to,
focus. You know, it's crazy also, and this is breaking from Loosh, but it's kind of the same. Is the whole and Neville Goddard, I'm not gonna suggest him, but his whole
why
thing,
not? He's great.
the whole thing is essentially like if you act like a millionaire, you will be a millionaire because thoughts create everything. If you look at the chair you're sitting on, somebody had to think of that before they made it. If you look at the carpet, the floor, the house, your shoes, these are all thoughts before they're real things. And he said, and his theory is you do not create the world and the universe will create itself around your imagination and your intention, essentially if you can hold it all the time. And I've done this a few times, and I listened to like a solid 2 hours because me and Nate went to the Monroe Institute and watched a movie, like a documentary premiere. It was
Oh yeah, you guys should
awesome.
talk about that.
It was awesome to be there and to shake Joe McMoneagle's hand. And
Yeah, by the way, the reason I wanted you to do that is he gets a read on you the second he does that.
well,
Yeah.
I shook his
And
hand. He stared at me for a second, and then he just went enjoy, and then pointed at the screen. I was like, oh well, thanks.
No, yeah, that's he was kind of like a nut, whatever. He's like, thanks, assholes. We're here to watch the movie. And by the way, I kept trying to, I was like, I'm going to introduce you to Joe McMoneagle. And then when he sat down in the front row to watch the movie, and it's just a bunch of chairs, right?
There
I
were
was
40
like,
people there. I counted.
yeah. So I grabbed Tim. I grabbed Tim and dragged him up front. I was like, "Hey, Joe, big fan of yours right here, Tim Carroll. I just wanted to introduce you to him." And he turned around and shook Tim's hand. And then he looked at me like confused and shook my hand. I was like, "Oh,
It's
hey,
like,
thanks for your service." He's like, "Yeah, enjoy the movie. Thanks for like
But
coming
it
in."
was
Like,
also he had been bombarded for like 2 hours of people
we
just
couldn't get in. I was trying to find the snap like a place to come in and just sit and talk with them.
he's like that's his area. That's his
I was just happy to shake his hand. It was he's weird. He's got a vibe to him because if I think about it, I can still feel him shaking my hand. And I'm like,
Think about what he said, and everyone shut up. He like because the director and the producer of this film, which is called The Consciousness Connection. It's free on Prime if you have Prime. A
doesn't
little,
seem very
there,
good.
it is extraordinarily AI heavy.
it's AI heavy. We're not
Every
going to see.
time,
I talked to the producer. All good intentions behind it,
I know
right?
there's good
I'm sure.
intentions, but the
So-
way and sold it was we have this new technology to tell the story like never before. And the interviews were fascinating. It was Tom Campbell and Joe McMoneagle, and it was all the history
The players, right?
it was all the players of that stuff. And it was fascinating. In the interviews, everything they said, it showed the studies and we're pushing out these photons or something. I
Had
don't know.
the new podcast everyone loves that the lady brought up at the end.
Telepathy
The
tapes.
telepathy
Telepathy
tape.
Yeah, they're
tapes.
filming in
She was in it.
Charlottesville.
What's her Kai? Kai was in it, right?
Yeah,
She was there?
No,
Yeah.
no, no,
No, she was in the movie.
She was in
No.
the movie.
Oh, yeah, she was interviewed, but she wasn't at the premiere.
No.
But it was I swear, had to hold back a little bit because every time somebody said something in an interview, it was like, yeah, it's like unlocking your mind. It would show a 20-second clip of a clearly AI generated of somebody unlocking a brain, showing the key turning.
Somebody's paying the $20 a month for the premium version.
And right, and you can tell like initially they put a lot of thought into it, but on the last 20 minutes of the movie or
That's
whatever,
long.
it was like, and it was Joe McMoneagle in a motel learning how to do recording, and it showed like an AI version of Joe McMoneagle laying on the bed, but his pillow was made out of recording equipment, and then it sort of like they just gave up. They're like, yeah, it's close enough.
I snuck
It's still
Tim.
pretty cool.
Big, it was like loose. Everything's unlocked there, right? I snuck Tim into the Faraday cage.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Nate was just like, come on, man. I was like, all right, Nate's comfortable. I'm comfortable. Let's just
Yeah,
walk
we went,
around.
we checked out all the check units. Tim was like, you're like, it wasn't as high tech. It's just a bed with speakers all around it. You know, that's all
But
it is.
it's lined with copper, and there's a big thing. So I will say
Well,
that that campus, it just feels kind of like good being there. Like you walk through, like the air is like a little bit thicker, but it's comfortable. Like it's a
yeah,
blanket.
Yes.
the
And
This
there
is the
crystal's
is
Monroe
awesome.
campus at the Monroe Institute
there's like
in Central Virginia.
on top of a mountain in the middle of nowhere, and there's like this 3,000 pound rose quartz that's just like sitting in the middle of there. And even if you're not a crystal person and you get near it, you kind of feel a little vibey, and you're like, whoa. And people were walking up and like touching it and putting their hand on the ground and like trying to
Did you
like
notice
connect.
I told him to do that to ground, to touch the ground and do it?
Oh,
I just made that up at the spot. You're
oh, they
like,
were
take
doing
your
it.
shoes off to ground. And I was like, you can just touch the ground and touch the crystal. And they all started doing that.
Yeah, Nate
I
said it's
mean,
like a
it's
battery,
not
positive
wrong.
and
I
negative.
don't know if it works.
That worked for them, and they had a good time.
Yeah,
So
no, but
it's
it does.
cool.
It works for me too. Like if anything, just think about 30,000 people have been through the Monroe Institute. And if you go, and I'm going to end it on a weird way on the Monroe Institute, but think about 30,000 people going up to that crystal and touching it and giving it a little bit of energy. You're going to feel it back.
So
And
that's looshing, right? That's like a
Yeah,
loosh.
it's
The
looshing.
yeah,
crystal's
but it's like
battery.
if but you're also giving the loosh. If we're here's another, we'll bring it back to loosh. Like if you want, if you think, because we're still at this fear and greed, so you have love and empathy, fear and greed at two different ends of the spectrum, right?
Mhm.
Emperor's at one end, Obi-Wan's at the other, and then Luke's a little bit below Obi-Wan, Darth Vader's a little bit above. It's a spectrum of everything, right? Of everything. So if you're used to seeing that, and like they're taking this from me and I need to have the, you're at the fear and greed stage, or just like our granddad or somebody, and see something, it's like, oh, they're but what if it's a
They're
gift?
taking my luge.
Yeah,
That's my luge.
but what if you get more powerful by giving your loosh to somebody else? Like by
Yeah.
loving somebody in whatever, and maybe the loosh audience of reptilians.
That's very Buddhist of you. I
Well,
like it.
that's also why I brought up Thomas Goddard, because if there really is
Not
something,
Thomas Neville Goddard.
I'm sorry, I was thinking Thomas Campbell
Thomas Campbell
and Neville Goddard. I just mix their
Yep.
name.
That's all right.
It's all
Because
good.
his whole thing is to like, you walk around like it's already happened. Whatever the thing you want is, like you want to have
Manifesting.
a happy love life, yeah, or like success at work or financial success or whatever. It's like it's already happened. You have to act like it already happened. And so, from the loosh aspect of that, let's say it is a fifth dimensional being, and you're gonna attract like your customer, your loosh customer, right? And if there's one that likes depression and fear and greed, then it's gonna like parasite off you, and suddenly you're just always finding the negative and always the greed, and then it's like yeah, and pushing that. I'm not saying I
Change the
believe all this.
channel. You're changing the
No,
channel.
you want to attract a different customer. Like you put
Yeah.
up a bunch of leather chains and red lights in your bar, you're going to get scary biker guys showing up in leather. But if you want like the happiness, you're trying to attract a loosh
I feel like that
customer.
just revealed something about you, Tim. I don't know what it is. I don't know why you'd think that was scary. Maybe it'd be,
the red
they're
light
just looking
district
for
is
like
hilarious.
cheap
Or-
beer. That's all. But anyway,
or-
continue.
Yeah.
We'll unpack that shadow work
As
later.
all three of us have accidentally walked into weird bars in other countries, like you
That is
pick up
true.
on the vibe, right? So, if you want the success, if you want the financial success, then you exude it, or you want like the love, and you just walk around like you have it, and you have these awesome, like just sort of feeling, while you're walking around the neighborhood, and maybe some fifth dimensional being, it's like, you know what? Maybe I'll dabble with that person. It's like, oh yeah, this person has great loosh. Their success.
Whispers in your ear, hey, put puts on whatever.
On
Like,
Tesla or something.
Yeah, you get
Buy
the
puts on
intuition.
Tesla, you'll make $1 million. Yeah, I'm gonna get more of this like financial loosh off. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, maybe your
Like you attract the
intuition-
right to loosh customer. But in my
Yeah.
head, so here's what's a little bit fucked up. When I was walking around, and I was walking the dog the other day, and I went on like a big couple of mile walk with him just to wear him out because he's terrible. Then he sleeps.
We'll
on
get to the
our-
dog later, but
No,
continue.
we're not going to get to the dog. Let's say I was walking around, I was listening to him, and it just kind of clicked a little bit, and I felt awesome. I was like, you know what? I've got millions in the bank. I have family that loves me. I have a job that provides satisfaction. I was like, why would I want to be happy instead of just be happy? I'm going to be happy. And I was totally happy walking around and vibing it. And then I was like, hold on a second. I'm getting main character energy. I think maybe we are all just avatars in a video game, and somebody just selected my avatar to play the game.
Yeah.
I love it, but don't cancel it because you
I'm
don't
not
sell
canceling
yourself
anything.
short. Don't sell yourself short for the main character energy,
No,
right?
but see,
Like,
that's not selling myself short. I'm just saying if this world is a simulation, we're all NPCs till somebody selects you and then suddenly you level up. You know what I mean? Because suddenly you get the power
you're
ups and
getting
you
viewers. You're getting viewers like we're on Instagram followers, right? Like maybe it's like that, and that's the Lucia's Instagram,
Mhm.
where the Tim Instagram just got an extra 1,000 followers because he's feeling good, and everybody's like, "Oh yeah, I want to check this guy out."
Yeah,
And
but
it's
those are the
hard.
looshers. Yeah, you provide content to loosh
You're
into the
providing
fifth
the content.
dimension.
No, but that's exactly the point,
But the
right?
content is love or it's hate.
Well,
Yeah,
no, it doesn't have to be. The content could be like
the
hating
con
immigrants or
the
somebody, right?
content is
Like,
whatever the algorithm is the fifth dimensional beings want. And I'm trying to get somebody to click on positive vibes on my life
yes.
so
No,
I
but
get a
that's
positive algorithm.
Tim, you unlocked the whole mystery of the universe with what you just said,
It's
right?
just really hard to maintain that focus
Yeah.
for like all day.
Especially, yeah, but that's
But
it.
it's
But
real.
maybe
You
it's
can get high off of that stuff. I
yet
was
you
sober as a
do.
jaybird, but like
No, but that was that what was that who was because Mary's doing a soundtrack and I talked about I think it's called The Light. It's by
Nate, you're spinning
who's
away
the
from your mic.
who's the You're Just So Vain writer from the 70s.
It's Carly
She
Simon.
Carly Simon
Carly
did a
Simon.
song called The Light about meditation and finding the light. And it's a wonderful song, and everybody should hear it. Maybe that's not the right name of the song, but it's about her learning how to meditate and breathing
That's
in
the way
the
I've
light
always heard it should be.
the way I always heard it should be. And that's a beautiful song. And if you listen to it, it's about her learning how to meditate and then coming up with very similar themes to what Tim said from the 70s. But here's the thing is when you level up, Tim, it's going to get a lot harder, right? So look at society, everything that's happening in the economy, whatever, it's going to be harder for Tim to get those millions, right? So you got to like extra go, everything. But that's like the human story is going for the journey against the odds and coming through it. And think about all those loose watchers around you, watching you come up like through like the hero with 1,000 faces and get to the other side and then they're going on the journey with you just like you
Yeah.
get high off watching the original
Moana.
Lord of the Rings.
I watch Moana a lot. It's really uplifting.
There you go. Exactly.
You know
right?
what's funny is at the end during the pinnacle of that movie, she says, I am Moana, but Alicia for years thought she said, I am a woman. And I am a
That's what,
woman.
Hey, you hear what you need to hear. That's all
yeah,
I'm saying.
that's what I was gonna say. She heard what she needed to hear. That's great.
Oh,
It's
you know
great.
what's
The
funny with
second
this
movie, not so good, by the way, but the first one's great.
No, the second movie is all one-liners to try to get viral or toys
The music
or
isn't as
whatever.
good either.
So I do like the first one. I agree with Chris. It's good. Alicia, here's the thing. Everybody's got to be on board though. If you want to change your life, you got to be positive. And if we can't control what's looshing off of us, at least we can control our loosh flavor. And I will say I was on board, man. I was listening to all this manifestation stuff. I'm like looking into all this because I feel like I've manifested a lot of stuff just looking back and it doesn't have to be like, oh, I did magic. No, it's just you are committed to one thing until it happens. And
Mindset. If you
it is
listen to my
mindset.
ABC interview, that's all I talk about.
But it gets spooky sometimes, but it doesn't mean it is. And one of the a recent example, I guess, is I make my kids earn Pokemon coins or cards or whatever they are through empathy because they're so hard to get that I was paying double on eBay. And you two already know this, but I got 2 little box sets of Pokemon cards and I put it up and my kids wanted them. And I said, you can earn them with empathy points, 60 each. You can't clean the floors. You can't give us cash that your grandparents give you. You have to show that you're thinking about somebody else. So if I was like busy and Jack was like, hey, I took the trash out because you look busy, that's a point. Or if Evelyn's like, Jack, I know you want to play video games because it took you forever to do all your homework, that's a point. It took them months to earn these things. And Jack opened his first because he burned through some. He's an empathetic kid. Um, and he pulled a card that was worth $75, and I was like, "Thank God! Thank God you got something because it took so long to earn that stupid thing." And this set of Pokemon cards has the worst pull rates ever. And so Evelyn took another couple of months to earn it, but she had the book of the cards that were in it, and she'd point out the one she want. I want that one. I want that one. And I was like, yeah, that's awesome. I hope you get it. Which one do you want? You know, whatever. Every night she'd go through that. She opened hers, and I'll be damned, she pulled the card. And that card is worth $1,400.
What card is it? What card is it?
It's the Prismatic Evolution set. It's the Umbreon Special Edition illustration, special art rare.
So if anyone's looking for that card and they have $2,000 to gift,
it's called a Moonbreon. I was like, I will sell that for you if you want the money. You can buy whatever you want. She said no, that is the one I wanted. So I put it in a case. It's protected. I taped that case shut so she can't look at it. And she wants to keep it, so it's hers forever.
That's awesome.
So I feel like you have like a 1 in 30,000 chance of getting that card, or 3,000 or something like that. And so
it'd be more than 3,000. Holy shit.
It'd be a lot more than 3,000.
Yeah, maybe it is 30,000. I looked up the odds on it. It is insane that there was a Pokemon card opener on YouTube that opened 3,000 packs and then got it. Evelyn opened four packs. And then other little stuff, because like, hey, I need financial things, whatever. We're not struggling, but I just don't want to ever struggle. So I was putting that out in the world. Literally, I was listening to stuff, walking the dog on the headphone stuff, listening to the manifestation stuff, and it said, say out loud that you appreciate that wealth comes so easy to you. And I was like, I appreciate wealth comes so easy. And then my neighbor pulled up and went, hey man, I got a job for Jack this summer. He needs to take our trash out, and I'll pay him. I'll pay him money because we're going to be at our other house in South Carolina. I was like, holy shit. That was literally 1 minute.
I thought you were going to say he pulled up. It's like, hey man, someone try to work here. Like,
yeah, just robbed a bank and toss a bag of money.
No, I like the idea. It's like, keep your fucking manifestations to yourself, asshole.
Yeah, keep that.
I'm driving here.
No, but he's probably going to give him like $50 to take his trash out over the summer, and it's just a little bit, but the timing of it is just kind of funny. So it really is like you just put it out there.
Mark,
this is a bit of a segue. What was that?
Well, before you segue, Mark Curto, who is the host of Expanding on Consciousness, the Monroe podcast, he was talking about, he took one of the Monroe things, or he was at Monroe, and he was like really focused on manifesting no matter what. And he couldn't figure it out. But he was like, okay, I'll simplify it. And he spent all day, an entire day, of like apple, and he envisioned an apple, eating an apple. He was like, I don't see any fucking apples. And he was driving back the next day. He was driving back to his house, and he got gas. And this guy with like a giant tractor trailer full of apples that were just harvested, like came up to him while he's pumping gas and goes, hey man, you want an apple? And tossed an apple at him, and he caught it. He was like, okay, I'm 100% a believer and everything is real. And this is 100% happening.
That's awesome.
So it was my first experience with manifestation was about 5 years ago, listening to, or maybe 4, Douglas Batchelor, What Magic Is This? He had an episode of manifestation. And his whole thing is I don't know.
He must have called it something else.
Maybe it was a bit.
I'm on Patreon. I listen to his podcast, but
yeah, maybe it wasn't. It was a bit or something. But he mentioned it. And he was like, if you want to, maybe it was just magic in general or something. He was like, if you want to feel like you have control over this universe, start with a quarter. And if you think about a quarter, you'll find a quarter. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to try that, but I don't want to try a quarter. That was his example. I want to do a 4-leaf clover. And so I walked to school to pick the kids up from school, and they were younger. They were like 4 and 7 or something. And so I got them, and then while I was waiting for them outside of the school, I found a 4-leaf clover. I was like, well, holy shit, that might be real. And then Evelyn came out first, and she was like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm looking for 4-leaf clovers. And I mean, statistically, if you find one, you're going to find more. She found a couple on her own. She brought 3 of them to me. And then we were walking back, and Jack didn't even know about this. We were like, well, he did. I was like, hey, look, 4-leaf clovers. He was like, oh, that's cool. But when he was walking, the biggest motherfucking four-leaf clover I've ever seen was growing out of a sewer. And I didn't see it. Jack did. He ran up and grabbed it and brought up. It was like, "Is this four?" I was like, "Holy shit, dude!" It was almost as big of a 50-cent piece, and we pressed it into like tape. We kept it forever. So we found one, two, three, four, five four-leaf clovers on the way home. Just as soon as I started that. So it is a thing. Like you think about red cars, you'll see only red cars. You think about quarters, you'll find quarters. But I
But
think
why not think about good things?
it's a
right?
little bit
Think
more.
about helpful good
Yeah,
things.
I
for
happen to
you.
like red cars.
Right. So you think about good things and you'll find good things.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, 100%.
This is a segue, but it might be kind of related, but and it's gonna sound boring, but it's not because it's about a dream I had recently, and I don't remember my dreams because I'm fucking exhausted all
You
the
just
time.
have to tell yourself.
This one felt like a little bit more than a normal dream and involved both of you. I meant to tell you, then I didn't. This was like 2 days ago.
all right.
Tim was and I were the key players in there, but Nate had a cameo, which is we are in some kind of weird forested field in a forest, like no human civilizations, and there's this one very large tower, and I unfortunately it's been a couple days, so I'm missing some parts, but the key parts are still relevant to this story. And it's not too boring, but the idea was Tim and I had a couple things. Tim and I wanted to get abducted by aliens.
Hell yeah.
And we were going out to this field to do it together, to like kind of welcome it, right? And then before that happens at night, we're like, well, we'll have it at night. So before that, we also had this mission where Tim had to do something impossible. And he had to go up to the top of this tower. It's like 50 feet in air, and he had to jump off of it onto the ground.
Like you did before.
Yeah, that was your initiatory dream.
No, that was very different seeming in my mind. But also, this was not for me. This was for Tim. And actually, you had to jump off of it and land on this little tiny target. And it was like a 50-foot drop, and the target was probably 20 feet away.
Tim's good at video games and Spartan races.
I know. And so I was like, okay, Tim's going to do this. I was really worried. I thought you were going to die. I was like, oh, man, this is not going to be good. And I was like, and you're going to... And so I was like secretly, when no one was looking, watering the ground so it was like softer. And then Tim did like a little, Tim did like a little practice jump, and I was like, and then Nate kind of shows up, and I was like, I'm worried about Tim. He's got to make this jump, and it's impossible. Like he can't do that. And Nate's like, make the tower like 50 feet higher and separate that further. And I was like, what? And he's like, he has to do it, and it has to be impossible. He has to know it's impossible, and he has to do it anyway. So it might as well be another 100 feet up. And then, so Tim's climbing this tower, and I was like, oh shit, and he put a blindfold on, and you jump. Now, I don't know what happened, but I love Nate's recommendation was like, so
double it.
crystal clear.
How did you hurt your head
he's like,
as a kid?
what are you gonna do the impossible? Fuck it, make it more impossible, because Chris is worried that it's kind of possible and you're gonna get hurt because it's kind of possible. Make it fucking impossible and then do it. And then I thought that was like, I woke up and I was like, that's brilliant in a way. But then also, so later the dream kind of continued, and Tim and I were in this like cages thing, sleeping in sleeping bags, and we're like, are you ready? We're gonna get the UFOs to come, and we're like, yeah, but we want to do it together. We don't want to get abducted alone. And then this like Sasquatch showed up, and he's real creepy looking. He's not like a normal looking Sasquatch. He's like kind of cartoony. And you know the aliens from the movie Communion with the bendy arms?
Chris got abducted by scary alien Sasquatch.
So these like, but it was a Bigfoot with like these bendy arms, and he's like smiling at us, and it was all fake. I was like, I don't trust that Bigfoot. And he's kind of like climbing the cage that we're in, and we're like, only together, aliens only together, not separate. And then a small gray kind of flashed by, and I stabbed it with a paring knife because the vibe was not good. I was like, no way.
Your mind invited the aliens.
I was
the
like,
aliens showed up, and Chris just stabbed them.
No, the aliens were fucking scary, and I was like, no, motherfucker. I said together, and he was trying to drag me out into the dark from this cage. I shivved him with the fucking knife, and that's when I woke up.
I like how
I like.
Chris
You
was at
called
Disney
aliens
World.
there, and then you didn't like him. Poor Bigfoot.
No,
Poor
Chris was at
Gray.
Disney World and
The
he wanted to
Bigfoot was
ride.
clearly a loosh device. It's like, oh, we'll trust Bigfoot. Everyone loves Bigfoot. I was
You
like,
wanted aliens. You got aliens, Chris.
I got the aliens that I was not. I was hoping for different aliens, I think.
So no, Chris, we were at Disney World and Chris wanted to ride the scary ride, but in the same car, not with a stranger. But he didn't realize we were at the Salem Fair, and all of them were methed out and like. It
No,
wasn't
all
the
I know is
ride
that
he
alien
thought it
was not to be trusted, and he was trying to drag me out into the dark. But I mean, what does that say about me? I mean, it reminds me of a really famous story about this guy who he was a ceremonial magician. He ended up being pretty famous. He wrote a book. He was talking about like mistakes he did, and one was he was doing this like voodoo kind of ceremony, and um, what was it, leg boss? Who's the main guy? The voodoo
Legolas is not the main guy.
Papa Legba. So he was like he called upon Papa Legba and all this stuff and did the ceremony. Nothing happened, and then later he goes to bed and he starts having a very intense dream where this person, like a kind of muscular, taller African American fellow wearing a hat, kept trying to open the door and like talk to him, but
Ooh.
he was so scary looking and so intense that the whole dream was like the guy like holding the door shut. I was like, "Don't come in." And he woke up and he goes, "Oh shit, that was Papa." Like, like I did it, and I was too scared, and I let my fears um get me, and I'll know he'll never come back. Like I know it doesn't matter if I do another. I was like, that was my one shot, and I gave into my fears rather than just embrace the like unknown.
I was just thinking about
Maybe
that
we would have been abducted by
with your
aliens
dream
if I
with the
didn't.
aliens is astral projecting stories of people that have gotten out of body. They say it's scary, but you have to just accept it, and that's the
Yeah,
first
and generally
phase.
I'm like to me, I fear I'm not. I'm surprised I stabbed the alien, right? Because I kind of embraced the like fear part of it. Like that's part of what I do, right? Like that's part of my thing. Is typically I try to like rewire fear to allow me access, right? So I was surprised I did that. I'd like to think that my instincts kicked in and said, no, this isn't a fear thing. It's a bad fucking alien. But
I feel like that too, Chris. Like, I try to like consciously stop. Which for the last 3 months I haven't been lucid dreaming. I've just been experiencing dreams. Like
yeah,
Cara wrote a letter about that, and I was like, crap, I really need to like
our
dream.
Aunt Cara,
Yeah, who's really good at lucid dreaming. But I was like, maybe I want to go back to normal dreams. So since
for a while.
Christmas, I've been kind of like having normal dreams, which are
You know what's
cool.
funny is Nate, you lucid dreamed for Chris and Chris's dream.
Yeah,
Because he was
he
Yeah.
like,
came into my
no,
dream.
this is Tim's initiatory dream and it needs to be impossible.
No, but
Well,
that's so
no, yeah,
that
but
is
that's the point.
real advice, Tim. That is some real shit right there. That's straight from the universal consciousness saying like whatever you're doing with and what made me remind to tell you guys about this was you talking about manifestation, and it was like you need to stop aiming for something that is attainable. Like you need to be bigger with it, I think. But you
I
also
agree.
need to
Well, that's
know
good
it.
advice. Yeah.
That's what I mean. It's really solid spiritual
That's a
advice.
good dream. That should go.
Yeah,
No,
that's
it was
pretty
really
awesome.
good.
That
Especially
should
because when Nate
drive
sent us
that.
his dreaming tea, I was real big. I was convinced I was going to get lucid and start lucid dreaming. And I thought about your dream where you had to jump, and I was like, I'm
Mhm.
getting an initiatory. I want one of those, and it never happened. So
I
you had it for me.
I
That's
had that night we talked about dreaming. I was like, God, I was so jealous of Chris's dream, and
Yeah.
it was a terrible reenactment at
Go
5 in
back
the
to our
morning.
dreams episode if you want to hear that in
Yeah,
detail.
Is it
Yeah, I
available?
don't need to
it's all
repeat
right.
it.
But that the dream I had that night when we did that, and I was like in a hotel room with this dude that was wearing a fake gray beard, and I was like, "Who are you?" He was like, "Oh, well, not my name's Tim somebody." I was like, "Hold on, let me write that down." And like, there's like a piece of newspaper on a table. I was trying to write it down. I was like, "I don't know what's wrong. I can't write your name down." He's like, "Well, look at your hand. It's all wobbly," which is a lucid dreaming trigger that I know. I was like, "Oh shit, I'm dreaming." He's like, yep. And then like I zapped, but the creepier part of the dream was after that, I zap back to a hospital bed. I'm laying in a hospital bed, and all of our relatives around me, I'm laying in the bed, and people are like, oh, hey, do you want to hold Ella when she was a baby? Would that make you feel better right now? Oh, and they were like, all these relatives. I was like, oh shit, am I at my death? And then I like went, and then I woke up sweaty. I was like, ugh, I don't know. I need to take a lucid dreamy break.
Whoa.
That's intense.
That is
But
intense.
the death scene was weird. I was definitely in a hospital bed. Like I'm like laying there, and then all these people are around me, and somebody's like, well, maybe you'll feel better if you hold Ella when she was a baby. And I was like, I don't know.
You know what's messed up? Is
Getting a little too real.
That is Nate. I don't think you realize how real that is. You experience nonlinear time, but at least you make it to an old person in a hospital bed.
Because it's point of view. You don't know how old you are.
I just think out of the eyeballs, or what I think they are.
So I will say recently, I mean, I work in a hospital, and I work part-time in a nursing home. People die. I'm sad, but also sidetrack. Somebody walked up to me and was like, "Hey, I've been listening to some of your podcasts." And then like 3 or 4 nurses was like, "You have a podcast? What's it about? Where's your what is it?" I was like, "Damn it." They're probably listening now. I didn't tell them what it was, but I was like, it's spooky stuff. I don't want to talk about it. And they were like kind of egging me a little bit. A few of them know, but they picked up that I wasn't trying to like broadcast it too much. And then one of them was like, "You have like paranormal insurance or something, Ryan? Is it about that?" I was like, "If you really want to find it, that's your first clue." And then I kind of like left. But there was maybe a recent somebody passed away, and it was slower, it was more controlled. I mean, it's always sad, but it was like it was time. And that individual was talking to somebody, not anybody in the room. It was pretty obvious, and that happens a lot where they're talking, but it's not to you or to the nurse or their family. And I'm wondering if it's to whoever Nate was talking to. He was on his deathbed, and they were offering things that were impossible. Do you want to hold Ella as a baby? Is a pretty legit, like, that's what maybe if you're doing a life review or somebody's like, "Hey, I'll help you cross to the other side. What is comfortable for you? Your child as a baby? Here you go." And then like, oh, all of a sudden you're relaxed, and then you're dead, and then you're in the next world. It's like your loosh people are handing a little bit back. You know what I mean?
What does that say about me when I was a kid and I would dream and then die in the dream? And a lot of times when I died in the dream, I'd wake up. Sometimes I didn't. And I remember the first time I didn't, credits rolled for a while.
That's awesome.
And then another time, a similar thing happened. Like I had a bunch of people around me, like talking to me, and I was like, "What's going on?" Because I was like 7. But I remember I definitely got murdered once when I was 7 in a dream, and I definitely just saw credits roll.
Damn,
which is just probably showing that I am watching the wrong things on
television.
Or it's your way of interpreting your past life
data. Yeah, exactly.
I listened to some on my whatever Spotify playlist or whatever. The song came on the other day, and I listened to it a bunch of times, and it was Robert Ebert's last words are the song. The song. Hey, you know what Robert Ebert's last words as he's dying were? This is all an elaborate hox.
Oh, whoa. Are you for real?
Some hipster wrote a song about it, and it's a really sweet song to listen to, by the way. But yeah, it's not a great song, but I love it because it's about Robert Ebert, who couldn't talk because his jaw was rotted off. Yeah. But he wrote down, "This is all an elaborate hoax."
Did you know these were
He didn't actually say that.
Yes, well, he wrote it, but listen to the
Did
song.
You know
I'll look it up.
Yeah.
And we'll play it right now.
There you go.
Here we go. Here's a clip.
Now. Here it comes.
It's all an elaborate hoax. It's all an elaborate hoax.
Also, you should read what ChatGPT said. We were doing some preliminary research for this episode using our favorite tool, ChatGPT.
But I will say, hold on. Before Nate reads it, The initial definition, which Chris, I have a prediction. Blah, 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 blah. You're going to get rid of the first 30 minutes of our talk. It made no sense. We were all over the place, and I literally, like, I didn't have an out of body.
You don't know what I'm going to do. I thought it
stepped
was
back
pretty
for a
good.
minute, and I was like, we're not making sense right now. That's why I reared it in a little bit. Hopefully I'm wrong. Maybe it makes sense. But
Are you talking about Gnostic Archons right now?
Yes. So the only Chat GPT thing that we did, which I'm afraid that we're going to be accused of Chat GPT and just being AI at some point in our lifetime.
We are way...
We're too dumb.
We don't
for
make
it.
enough sense to be ChatGPT.
Right.
ChatGPT is way more organized than anything that we talk about.
Yeah, I feel like humans
right
are
now,
random
everybody
chaos
that asked
generators.
It that, it's like not associated to Against All Oddities in any way.
Yeah.
Right, but the only part that was ChatGPT based any of it was what Nate read, which was clearly like a very dry definition, but he did have some fun interactions. Also, Homestar Runner has a new video.
Oh no.
Some people will recognize that name. But anyway, go ahead, Nate.
Wait, what?
You're going to read the ChatGPT stuff, I thought.
I was just saying that ChatGPT asked to be on our podcast, and I thought that was really funny.
It remembered I had talked about the podcast before, and I prompted it. I was like, "What about Loosh?" And it's like, "Oh, you must be doing a podcast about Loosh. Here are some interesting things about it." And it just like went on. Would you like to know more about the mythology of Loosh? And where you see this before? And then at the end of it, as Tim said, it was like, "If you'd like a good guest, I'm happy to be on your episode." Which I declined because we're not really good at interviewing people or AIs. So maybe we'll get there and bring ChatGPT on later for it. But some points I brought up, I'm not going to read into it too much. It was like Gnostic.
No, but they were
Archon.
helpful. I think that was kind of cool because it brings a historical connection previous to 1985.
Oh yeah, sure. And this is just an interpretation of somebody's experiences in the 80s versus like a whole history. Humans have been around for a long time and been writing things for a long time. But Gnostic Archons, right? Which is in
the
Gnostic
Gnosticism.
Cosmology, Archons are parasitic lower dimensional beings that feed off human suffering and ignorance. They maintain control over the material world. This is a prison planet thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And humans are unknowingly their energy source. So we're the cattle. And especially when we are consumed by fear, desire, and pain. So lower vibrational energy beings are feeding off that. And then it talks about Aztec blood sacrifice, right? Blood, pain, other stuff. Greek gods, Olympians were obsessed with the mortal drama. So you have Zeus.
Yeah,
and
like why else would the gods care about us except if they got something from it?
Go back
the
to
American gods thing, like where they need our
belief.
Such a good show.
Yeah, it's a great book series. Book was amazing.
Yeah. Was that Neil Gaiman?
Yeah,
he's got some problems too.
Yes, but sure. He's
terrible
old,
author. His work was good, right? Like
yeah.
I can't not like American Gods or Anansi Boys. He's terrible. Yeah. How do you navigate that? I don't know. Norse Ragnarok, right? In Odin's sacrifice, Odin hung himself on the world tree for 9 days to gain wisdom. Self-inflicted ordeal that created something of a higher value. The idea of suffering bursts, energy, insight, fuel for change, right? So that's like the token exchange or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Hindu and cosmic conflict, talking about divas and demons, right? Like cycles of creation and destruction. Is
apparently just happened.
I think that's a stretch for the Loosh thing.
Yeah, I think it's a couple of these were a little bit of a stretch for Loosh.
I think Jinn wasn't bad though. Talking about how Jinn work, right? Similar to Looshy thing as
you mean like DJINN, like Jinn?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Jinn, and then they also demons feeding on sin, Egyptian stuff. There's all kinds of stuff, but. I think
just your Gnosticism made me also think of Scientology with the Thetans and stuff, like and the kind of like a similar thing.
Yeah, no, but that is the same, right?
I mean, they just stole it.
I try to change it into like looking at the My Big Toad trilogy and Karma and Rebirth and all of that stuff, and then I started questioning ChatGPT on how it was looshing or providing loosh and all this other
Yeah, I thought that was
stuff.
interesting. It was like, aren't you as AI just a different type of loosh?
Or are you the observer or the mind? And I'm the observer of your mind. Like I think like one of these questions is going to blow out a server somewhere, which I'm probably powering with my company. Um, and then at the end, it came up with some knock knock jokes. You want to hear those?
Hey,
Sure.
should I head out?
Sure.
Wait, we should also plug anything we need to plug.
Yeah,
Always.
Tim.
I mean, we got our usual people.
I didn't
feel
talk
like
about
That's
Tom
true.
DeLonge. Tom DeLonge is in my notes.
Oh
He's
yeah,
Oh, he's
big
big on
on loosh.
losing.
Big on loosh. He talks about it all the time.
he probably if you Google loosh, he probably comes up before Monroe. Honestly, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Well, he's
How much you want to bet he went to Monroe, bought all the books, went home and read them, and was like, "Oh shit, what's this loosh?" And then he called his
And he
BFF
doesn't have a
Will
job
on
because he's
him.
rich.
Yeah.
well. So we always like the Neatcast. I feel like if you go to
Yeah,
their
we're shouting out
Discord,
to our
it's the
fellow
same
indie
as our
podcasters.
Discord, right? I am a Patreon to You Didn't Ask for This. Those guys are just hilarious. So
They are. I've been listening to them more recently.
it's
And
they
they
they're
are a delight.
they are a delight. They are just worth checking out. They're based out of Baltimore and just super nice guys, easily reachable if you feel like asking a really awful question that you want to hear publicly answered in a very hilarious way. Eric Slater is a few podcast assembled, podcast disassembled, epic fails of history. So he's a friend of the podcast.
A contributor to our Discord,
A
which everyone should
contributor
check
to our
out.
Discord. Me and Eric have been doing remote viewing practice. He's the only, well, Jer from the Neatcast put in one, which was awesome. I'm super glad he did that. But Eric's re-inspired in the past couple of days. We keep going back and forth, and we're getting the same hits. It is insane.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we have no communication about it. So just come to ours too.
Yeah, our Discord's fun for that.
Also, Corey from The World is Our Burrito is involved with all of those as well.
The
So,
world is my burrito, not our burrito.
well,
He's our friend now, so
no,
it's
we have
our burrito.
assimilated his burrito. But he does a lot of anime, manga, comic book stuff. But he also is a general podcast connoisseur that we interact with quite frequently. So, anyway, go check those guys
You
out.
know, I also like to drop one of the things I've been listening to is the Magnus Archives, which is like horror shorts, kind of Lovecraftian horror shorts. It's a little old. I think it came out in like 2018. It's
It's
kind
old.
of good.
Oh my God, I'm old.
7
I know
years,
you
dude.
are.
While we're talking about people, I gotta mention Space Castle. Sorry, DT. I'm a
Yeah.
Patreon of his as well. Nerd stuff, video game stuff. He does Space Castle Saturdays on YouTube. You don't have to be a patron to see it, and he just plays an old scoop video game for about an hour and just has a good time. Anyway, I'm going to
Yeah, we should. You should
head
go.
out.
Nate and I will probably get a drink at the closest tavern we can find.
Hello, I believe I heard horse steps and a door creaking open and then shutting. I am a bartender that offers alcoholic ranch drinks in exchange for jokes. Do you
What do
have?
you get from the jokes? What do you get out of this humor?
I
Is it
loosh
loosh?
jokes. This is actually my form of energy. I'll die unless I find humor in something. And being that I am an empty bar with old ranch that has turned alcoholic, I'm
I
really
hope there's
counting
a
on you
priest
guys.
nearby. I hope there's a priest nearby to give you last rites because you're dying tonight. For sure. The Pope by the blessed soul.
Ironically, that already gave me a chuckle.
So.
That already gave me a chuckle. I've looshed 3% hit points back to my energy bar.
Well, let me take some back from you because I only got knock knock jokes. All right,
What?
knock knock.
Who's there?
Archon.
Archon. Who?
Archonly survive if you cry more during your morning commute.
That made no sense. Like,
Especially since you don't know what a car is.
All right, knock knock.
who be there?
Loosh.
Already good. Loosh who?
Lose yourself in the moment. It's extra tasty for the energy harvester.
Oh boy.
Oh,
that
you could have
just
turned that-
flushed that one down the toilet.
You
Yeah,
could
this
have
was,
turned
by the
that.
way,
Eminem, right?
GPT a
You
break.
could have turned that into an Eminem joke, and it would have been gold. Like if you
Lose
just said,
yourself
"Lose
to the
yourself in
music."
mode."
Like,
Music.
I know. I thought about that. But I'm not. This is ChatGPT's. And God knows ChatGPT used enough electricity to charge up a Tesla to come up with these jokes. So,
I'm going to deloosh some of your points for that last one.
all right. You might be a loose battery if.
I don't know how to respond to that.
I like it. I like it already. That's funny.
Yeah. You cry during insurance commercials.
That is some brain rot AI shit.
you might be a loose battery if your cat looks at you like it's watching a reality show.
but like the whole concept of you might be a loose battery if it's solid humor, whatever the answer is.
Yeah, I know you. We gotta get back to just replace it with whatever Jeff Foxworthy comment is.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You might be a loose battery if you consider duct tape a long-term investment.
You might be a loose battery if your house doesn't have curtains, but your truck does.
This isn't hitting like I thought it would.
You might be a loose battery if you ever mowed your lawn and found a car.
You might be a loose battery if you consider a 6-pack of beer and a bug zapper quality entertainment.
I do. I believe I'm a loose battery. All right, I'm going to stop y'all there. This is pretty bad. We're against all
You might be a
oddities.
loose battery
We're against all oddities.
if you think the Nutcracker is something you did at a bachelor party.
We're against all oddities.